Hi everyone, it's me, Tim. Today I want to give you a toy update. And by that I mean this is an update on a video I did a year ago where I talked about toys I was making, and those are little games. And not even really, don't even want to call them games. They're like little game ideas, mostly mechanics. Things like a 3D dice roller that I started turning into a card game dice roller thing, or a procedural dungeon generator. And I look back at that. It was with my old camera, and it was an insomnia video. I still have insomnia occasionally. I'll just wake up at 2 in the morning and I can't go to sleep. So I tried doing something. Well, one of those toys was this space combat simulator. I based it on my favorite game from 1979, Star Raiders. I have a video on my favorite games, and I talk about Star Raiders in that. Well, since I've done that video is a year old now, I've added things to that space combat game. I found a way of getting all the sound effects from Star Raiders, so I put them in.
Warning.
Which was fun. I added starting stages to the game. So sometimes you start in a planetary system, sometimes you start around a space station, sometimes you start in an asteroid field, just for fun. But I keep thinking of things I want to add. And that's kind of what I want to talk about here. It's like what I'm thinking about, what I'm doing, and how these go from being toys to games. So the two big additions I want to make to this space combat game is, first, new weapons. I've had a lot of ideas for new weapons. And by that I mean different kinds of changes to the photon torpedoes. I don't necessarily want to add phasers or laser-based games, although I thought about it, some kind of point-based game where you click and press and it instantly damages whatever's there. But I like the torpedo aspect of the game. It adds a kind of a skill to it that's different than phasers. I've added tracking torpedoes and stuff like that, but I had ideas for new ones, like torpedoes that would change gravity, either push ships away or suck them in. Had idea for a torpedo that would temporarily disable an enemy ship, so it would just sparkle and spin around and basically be out of the battle for a while, so I could do combat with a lot more ships, and you'd have to disable some of them. Sort of crowd control, if you've ever played MMORPGs. And then that made me think, if not just disabling them, but maybe a torpedo that delivers a virus to the enemy ships and then makes them fight on your behalf for a while. And that was all fun. Those are all things on my list of things to do. I have not done them yet. But then I looked at the shields, and the shields around the ship were basically you fire and the shield temporarily becomes visible. It's an ellipsoid around the ship. And I thought, I could make that a lot better. I could change the shield so that as the ship I'm attacking took damage and the shields got damaged, the shields would change. First of all, they would stop being transparent. They would start being slightly translucent to indicate that they're there and they're radiating the energy from the weapon you just hit them with. And then I could have them slightly increase in size, because when you increase in size like that, your surface area gets bigger, so it can radiate the energy away. And that's an indication that it's taking a lot more damage and it's trying to radiate away all that energy. I could make it, as it get more and more, less and less transparent, more and more translucent as it gets bigger, which would be a visual indicator. For you color seeing people, I thought about even making it start off really a deep red and then get brighter and get up to blue and even violet to indicate that it was radiating energy in higher energy quanta. It's basically not only getting bigger and trying to get rid of more energy, it's getting rid of higher energy photons. It's dissipating the energy faster. So all these things would be really fun and add to a add to the game in the sense of these are things that can be quantized, like the different weapons you get, the different components of a shield, like how much damage a shield can absorb, whether it expands and changes color and dissipates energy faster. So these are all things you can quantize and say this is a better shield because it can take more damage or can radiate away damage faster. Things like that that you can get. Now, one of my favorite games was Star Control 2, and Star Control 2 taught me decades ago that you can make an RPG that doesn't have a person as a character. And we don't see a lot of these. And in Star Control 2, the ship was a character, and I could do that here. So that made me think, well, what are things I can do to make this game into an RPG? And one of them was, well, the upgrades that you get are based on analyzing ship wreckage. So you basically have to destroy a ship and then pick up stuff from the records that you can analyze. And eventually, when you've done enough of that, you can make an upgrade. This means that the challenge in the game was kind of built in. To get better equipment, you have to fight better ships, which is automatically harder. You know, maybe you get better stuff or more wreckage from a big capital ship than a small little fighter craft. So that right there ups the difficulty. If you want to get better stuff, you're going to have to voluntarily do more difficult fights, seek out tougher enemies. It also made me want to explore planets because they let you do that in Star Control 2. You drop a little ship down and it would a little explorer craft and it would run on the surface of the planet. Now, immediately, what pops into my head, though, is you have to watch your scope. This is just me playing around. I don't have time to animate characters. And even if I had the animated characters, putting in the code to animate them correctly to make a first or third person, character-based game where you're exploring ruins and all that is probably just blew up the scope of this game. So I'd probably go back to doing where you have, little shuttles and, maybe go back to my terrain generator and you're just running around a procedurally generated world looking for ruins that contain stuff you can analyze that, like off of ships, you can upgrade your weapons. And then maybe things can attack the shuttle and it can have some defenses as well. So maybe there's a different kind of combat model I can make for that little craft on the surface as opposed to something in space. So that's all stuff that I'm now laying out. If I turn this into a game, that's what I do, because I want to point out something right now. This is not a game. This is still a toy. Or at best, you can call it a prototype. Now, the reason I'm saying that should be clear. If you've watched a lot of my videos, you know that I talk about the way I make a game is I start with a setting. From the setting, I think of a good story. And from the story, I think of what system mechanics would support that story in the context of that setting. Notice I'm not doing that here. I'm jumping right into system mechanics. That's why I call this a toy. This is not a game. We are still at the toy stage. If I want to be super generous, I can say it's a game prototype, prototyping the mechanics, but it is by no means a game, and wouldn't even pretend to call this a game. But I'm going to continue to advance this toy because I think there's a game in here. I think there's a good game in here. If Star Control 2 taught me anything, there's a whole vista of RPG variations out there that have not even begun to have been explored. I mean, Star Control 2 was made 20, 30 years ago, and yet we're still getting new RPGs where you basically play some kind of bipedal character guy running around, picking up stuff and getting better. There's other ways to do that, and that I think are equally as fun. So I wanted to give this toy update just to show that I still think about these things, still futz with them a little bit. If you do the same, I think it's great because it not only you learn coding, you learn how a game engine works, but it gives you this library of stuff you can pull from. If someone comes along or you have a great idea for a setting and then you think of a good story in it, you have this library of cool implemented mechanics that potentially could help you support your game idea. Anyway, I thought you'd be interested in that. Hope you liked it.